that said, let's move on to a second topic. So, let's see. What do we have that happened now of E3? Here's one thing that's very interesting. People have been discussing the whole Beyond Good and Evil 2 with the idea of Ubisoft's Hit Record collaboration. So let me pull up the piece here. Where was it? Here we go. So people have been discussing... There we go, that's perfect. But there's been a big discussion over the Hit Record announcement for Beyond Good and Evil 2. So if you missed it, the big reveal for the game is that they're going to partner with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's company regarding the idea of people providing work towards Beyond Good and Evil 2. The idea is that if you want to contribute assets to the game, be it music, art, maybe like a little movie that gets played on a wall somewhere, it's all being done through Hit Record. And the idea is that the community is going to vote on, you're going to work with it, and if it gets featured in the game, you're going to earn money for it. Similar to, of course, the idea of paid mods and the whole polycount pack for Team Fortress 2. And people are not too excited about it. The idea, of course, is that people are arguing that it sounds a lot like spec work, where you're doing work for free, and then maybe you'll get paid for it. And it's again one of those very sticky situations. From the post by Joseph, or I don't know, do we actually say all three names of him? I'm just going to call him Joseph here. But Joseph said that contributors will retain the rights to their work, and that it's basically a way to just get people to submit work for the game, and then if it gets in there, they're going to earn it. But obviously not every piece that gets submitted is going to make it into the game, and if it doesn't do that, they're not going to be using that. They're not going to try and steal it. But one thing that they said that got a lot of game developers a little flustered was they implied that if a developer created an asset that was used quite often in the game, it would be compensated more. And some people said that's not how game development works, and that was from the Gamasutra piece. But I think that this is a different situation. And it's not really game development. It's more similar to the idea of contributing work in the same vein as the polycount pack, which, if you remember, the more people or the more purchases of those assets would be funneled to the developer, the creator, through royalties. Yeah, I know a lot of people were discussing that on Twitter, saying that, you know, if you use any asset, it's immediately an asset flip. I think that is wrong. And I know I made that video about it as well. But when I think of an asset flip, I'm thinking of people literally taking something that was used in the Unity store or somebody else and just copying it wholesale. Meaning, I'm going to take this exact character model, I'm going to put it in my game. Oh, man. That's not what that I think is an asset flip. Taking an asset and then altering it or making it your own, that I don't consider to be an asset flip. Because people make use of stuff all the time about that. That's good. Hey, King. Just go there for memes and hentai artists. Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of those out there, especially on some of the stuff that's come on Steam. The stuff that hasn't been reported yet. Yeah. There was that game that someone linked that was just literally them taking the walk cycle from Unity and putting that into a video game with no other work. And I think that's when things go too far. Yeah. But if you're going to take an asset or you're going to use somebody else's work and then apply it, then that's a different story, because then we're getting into that whole issue of fair use and the transformative factor. And for people just coming on now, unfortunately, my not on the anti-RSS. Yeah, that would be a different discussion. Let's not get into that. I just got my live streaming back. I don't want to get banned again from YouTube. But unfortunately, if you're just coming on now, I'm in peak allergy suffering right now. And unfortunately, that means a lot of getting off camera to blow my nose. Oh, I'm really sorry about this one, folks. Unfortunately, I just cannot deal with the allergies when it's this bad with the heat. I wonder if that is affecting Rob as well, with it being summertime. Ugh, boy. Yeah. Oh, man. But with the idea of crowdsourcing and dealing with content like that, again, it's a very sticky situation. Because the people who are contributing to this stuff, they're not game developers. They're not asking people to contribute level designs, new mechanics, and stuff like that. So it's a lot more straightforward. If someone really likes a specific character model or a graphic, it's very easy to see that collaboration and see what it's going to be used for. But if somebody creates, let's say, a new let's say a new way to detect stealth, or to have a detection system in a stealth game, how do you really price out its implementation? Wow. Oh man, my mouth is dying too. But with something like that, like let's say I create a new system or a new lighting system for a game, and then somebody decides to build off of that for their new game. How do you really price that implementation? It's not as simple. Yeah, exactly, Alberto. Like pricing custom systems, modular development, of course, as well. And that's what a lot of people were arguing about with when Bethesda tried to have paid mods. Let's say I create a new walk animation, or a new way for the game to emergent or procedurally do walk cycles. I put up on there for free, and then I don't touch it. Then somebody else decides, I'm going to take this, I'm going to pair it with, let's say, a new system I've developed that models, I don't know, sweat. Let's go with that. I take his mod, I take my mod, I put it together for a new realistic movement mod, and I sell it for $5. And I start to earn money from that. What do we do with that original work? Well, you can say that that was used for Solar Armor. You can say that that was used for it, but it was transformed. It's not just that one piece anymore. And when you start getting into modular development like that and that collaboration, it becomes a lot more muddied. Now, again, with the stuff from Hit Record, we don't know how it works unless we've actually done anything with it. And I know I haven't spoken to Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the near past or in the far future from now. But again, it raises that point. If they create an asset out, let's say they take this person's paint, this person's rigging, and this person's modeling, how does that work in terms of money? And again, as we've said before, when you throw money into an equation, it becomes a different feature, or it becomes a whole nother headache for people to deal with. And again, what about when we started to get into music? Like, for instance, when I spoke with Jonas Turner and, what was his name? I forget. It was a big name composer. I forget his name, sadly, but I spoke to him a long time ago. They discussed when it comes to getting paid for music, they get paid literally by the second of the music that gets used in a game or in a movie or a TV show. So they compose something and it's 2 minutes and 38 seconds long, they're getting paid so and so per second. But in that case, they've been hired by that company. It's a locked contract to contribute to that work. It's the same thing for me when I did my book deal. But with something like this, and this is what a lot of people have worry about, they're saying, let's say I spend 2 months working on this amazing new character model for Beyond Good and Evil 2. I put it up there, and nobody likes it and doesn't get used. I don't get paid for that. But, as Draken mentioned further up, that's kind of the issue that people are expecting. That it's not a case of... it depends now for real, for an actual contract work. Yes, it has to be accepted. But I know with music, it has to be the finished work. They may get paid to initially develop it, but the contract is the company's not going to pay for 5 hours of work if they're only going to use 40 seconds of it. But with something like with Beyond Good and Evil, with the idea of getting paid to do your work, it should only get paid by the actual compensation for it. Meaning that if it gets used, yes, you're going to get paid for it. But if nobody's going to use it and you weren't commissioned to do it, then that's a different story. But again, it's one of those things that the game industry really, in a very surprising turn, the game industry is kind of behind when it comes to this kind of collaboration and the idea of crowdsourcing or getting paid for work like that. I'm sure, again, maybe Rob, if he was here, he would know more about it than I would with doing video game producing, but I'm sure it must get a stipulation in the contract. That idea that, when a show goes into syndication, do the actors receive money based on every time it gets ran, or every time there's music, on radio? And again, that stuff, that's when we start getting into contracts and IP negotiations, and I am certainly not a lawyer, so I cannot be going into that one. Yeah, I think it probably would have been better if they announced it, and they had work to show, and they could say, oh, so-and-so contributed this statue, and they're getting paid X amount of money for it. Or, these 4 people made a short movie that's going to play, and they're getting paid this. Again, having the proof there to begin with, and then going forward is a lot better than just saying, or hoping that everybody does it on good faith. Let's see, Joseph said this: some people make hundreds, some people make thousands, a few people make tens of thousands. Oftentimes a finished product will include a large number of tiny contributions, and those contributors can receive tiny paychecks. So again, that's the idea of a modular development or a joint work. And that could certainly work for it. Oh man. But again, without having actual concrete proof and showing how it works, we're all going by hearsay. And a lot of people have been burned by hearsay in the past. Now, with that said, though, it remains to be seen if the idea of paying people to work on a product can work. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, if I could do that, I would be rich right now. We wouldn't need a Patreon ever again. But when it comes to the idea of crowdsourcing content, again, it's a very sticky situation because, again, so many people have done this for free for many years. I mean, hell, when we talk about Tripwire, they originally got started doing a free mod for Unreal, which then got transformed into Killing Floor, and then the rest was history. Same goes for something like Natural Selection. And we've said this before, but the modding thing has been a great way for people to kind of dip their toes into game development. I mean, a really great example of this would be the Long War mod from XCOM. Let me see. And whose name, the developers that I keep forgetting. Who made that? Paphonus Interactive, is that right? Yep, I guess it was. But The idea behind Long War, now not League of Legends, but Dota originally started as a Warcraft 3 mod. The same goes for tower defense in general. But as the story goes, with Long War from XCOM, and now there's something in my eye, that's great. By the end of this thing, I'll just be sneezing, coughing, and eyes twitching, and you guys will love it. But the story goes with Long War. It started out as simply them wanting to make XCOM bigger. And in doing so, they basically had to create the tools and create the modding software for it. And exactly, I'll get to your point in a second, El Gordo. And they were able to release that mod, and it paid off so well for them that they got commissioned by Firaxis to create mods for XCOM 2, including the Long War 2. And now they're taking what they've learned and they're going to make their own original IP, which I'm assuming is going to be a tactical strategy game that will go on Kickstarter. Dota was the mod. But getting to Ogor's point there, this is the crux of this issue. Passionate work versus paying work. And that has always been a problem with any creative thing, even with stuff that I do and what other YouTubers do. Why should someone watch an ad or contribute on my Patreon for a video when I can just watch, 50,000 other videos of people saying the same thing? I mean, hell, the whole Battlefield 5 issue, type Battlefield in and you're going to get 36 videos of people saying women shouldn't be in Battlefield. And you'll probably get another 36 saying women should be in Battlefield. Well, actually, I have a plumber, I'm going to fix this toilet. I tried doing that, and it's not easy. But, yeah, with any work like that, it's very easy to discount or not understand the work that goes behind it. Why should I pay someone to build me furniture when I can just, take wood and nails and build a chair? It's very hard to see the craft behind a product, especially... Oh no, I agree with you. The presentation was not the best, and it was a Michael Bay version of Battlefield. But this has been the issue whenever we talk about creative or user-created work. How do you see the craft that goes into something when hundreds of dozens of people can do the same thing? It's the same thing with my videos. I see people who make 4 or 5 minute videos discussing game industry topics and don't go in the same thing, but they get several thousand views. Or I could certainly start making clickbait videos. I could do Fortnite videos and make, and just by default get 10,000 views just by having Battle Royale or Victory Royale on the video. Exactly. And again, it's always been that push and pull of consumerism. You want people to get compensated for their work, but you also want the best deal as well, because you don't have the money to spend for premium stuff every single day. Again, there's a reason why most people can't eat out at a fancy restaurant every day of their lives. Yeah, tell me about that, Draken. Yep. But again, it raises that point that just because they're getting paid, they do one video a month and they get the same by Patreon, you have people who will put out videos every single day trying to make it as clickbaity as possible and get higher up in the search results. They'll get more subscribers. There are so... There we go, exactly. There are so many people. I'll give you an example. Because I search for game-related stuff on YouTube, I get all these very clickbaity videos. I got one yesterday saying, "Oh, the next game from Software, Shadows Die Twice, or whatever it was called, is going to have loot box in it." And I'm like, "What? How do you have proof of that?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, I didn't do too much digging, but I watched the video and I saw Activision is the one who's publishing it. And, Activision like loot boxes, so I'm going to assume that the game's going to have loot boxes." I'm like, that's the whole point of your argument? Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. That's another point. Everybody's using that same style of a white background, black text saying something like, this, Prey was murdered, or loot boxes are going to kill people, or the studio is dead. Yeah, but the problem is it's a very weird cycle there, Drac, and YouTube is not sustainable income, but you still need to build a fan base of people who are going to be willing to support you on Patreon. Because just because you have good content or you're doing something different doesn't mean people are going to donate money. I mean, I've learned that the hard way doing Game Wisdom. I've got more people supporting me on Patreon now because of the YouTube channel than I ever did writing articles. And again, you can't really do it without having that fan base. I mean, Jim Sterling basically got really going because everyone knew him from The Escapist. I bet you if he tried to do the Jimquisition just out of the gates, there we go, he would have had a lot harder time because nobody knew who he was. Yeah, I think that was one of the guys that I saw. Oh, and if we're going to fire shots at YouTubers, let me get this one out of the way. There's one thing that I really hate, and I see this for a lot of male and actually female YouTubers who their entire strategy is there's a random image of the game, and then they're either like in the corner here or here making some kind of face. Like there's one who popped up and I saw her entire like her entire feed, and it was just literally her going like this. At one point, the same facial expression repeated twice. And she's not the only one who does this. There's other, and not just female YouTubers, but male ones as well, who is just like them in the corner making some kind of weird face. And that's the extent of their thumbnail. Like I've said before, I am nowhere near the point of being narcissistic enough to have thumbnails on my face. It's why I have to do that, because every time I edit a video on YouTube, they show me in 3 different images on me making some weird gesture. And while you guys would like that, I'm sure you would all get a kick out of it, I refuse to look at my YouTube channel seeing nothing but me on the thumbnail art. Oh yeah, we could certainly do some philosophy here. Maybe we can load up Bloodborne for it. But again, it raises that point that you could spend a month to 2 months making a video on a topic, or you spend a few days, make something very clickbaity, have your title be all capital letters, and throw every little description in that you can, and get 30,000 views on that. And who is going to be recognized more? Probably the person who did the clickbaity stuff. Yeah, and it just gets very annoying that you see these videos that do that. Yeah. And again, like, it's very hard. Like, what's going to be more of a response? Someone saying an analytical piece on Dark Souls, or Dark Souls is dead because From Software is sold out. Oh, and speaking of which, while we're on this topic, I know somebody attacked a game journalist because they reported that it was it was Dante in the first part of Devil May Cry 5, when we all knew it was Nero. Or some of us did. And again, that was hard to tell right at the start. But people like jumped on it. I'm sure there have been several videos made, game journalist screws up Devil May Cry reveal. Or, Devil May Cry fake fan was outed. Yeah, and I thought so too for like a split second. But again, it's one of those things that's like, oh, you didn't notice his arm for like 5 seconds of it. Yep, in the Cuphead tutorials, oh, that was a fun one as well. How many people made videos saying, game journalist ruins Cuphead, or Cuphead destroyed by SJWs, or pick a few more. Yeah. But again, if you weren't following Devil May Cry, I'm sure people made that mistake. I'm perfectly fine with that. Oh, and somebody, this is my favorite part, I saw the Twitter post they made on it, and somebody said, I would be fine the guy corrected after 5 to 10 minutes, but he let that up for 30 minutes. And, that is unacceptable. I'm like, okay. Yep. and then games be accessible, then leads to being streamlined, and then we get the SJWs, and then all of a sudden, everybody is playing, games that only need to press one button and you win. But, again, there's so much signal, or so much noise versus signal these days on any creative market or platform. And it becomes very hard to look at the craft that goes into it. Again, for the common consumer, can they tell the difference between a video that took 2 months to be made versus one that took 2 days? If the information is the same, or if one video was free and the other one was behind a paywall, are they going to really know what went into that? It's the same thing with the game industry. How many people have complained about a game being priced at $30 when they get similar games for $5, $10, or free? I mean, that is the whole point of the rushed race to the dollar, race to the bottom that we see in the mobile market. And again, the consumer wants a product that's fair. Sorry about that. And again, the whole accessibility versus easy thing, that's a topic way too big for today. But, again, let me pull this back up. Yeah. Accessibility is great, but it's not the same as making a game that's dumbed down. Exactly, Draken. And, as we said before, accessibility covers a very wide market. We can talk about things like having an easy mode. We can also talk about colorblind options, subtitles, even something as simple as having item or inventory sorting in ARPGs is an accessibility option. Quality of life is a very big aspect behind great games. And again, it's one thing that I see so many indie developers fail on, because it's not something that you can just design. You have to do playtesting. Like, if you watch, for those of you who are watching this right now, how many of you saw my first look on Dream Alone? And seeing just how hard it was to watch that game. Now, that is a game that could have used a quality of life feature. And, again, playtesting is such a key part of that. And that's a big point when it comes to difficulty, but we're getting off topic there. That you can have a hard game and still make it accessible. Just as you can have an easy game but make it inaccessible. I mean, I play very simple games that have had horrible controls, very hard to view aesthetics. Like, again, Dream Alone right there. It's an easy game to play, but it is not as accessible as a game like Cuphead. And Cuphead was also accessible because the controls were very fine-tuned. It's one of those games that does exactly as what I do on the controller gets represented there. Yep. Well, there is a new Tetris game by the developer of Rez. So I'm really excited about that. I'm sure we're all going to trip out playing Tetris. But with that said, I guess to wrap up this section, when it comes to crowdsourcing or modular development like this, you really have to spell it out how things work. And I think the game industry is not good, again, with defining aspects like that. Like, if you say, I'm going to accept work that's going to be put into the game, you should spell it out clearly. Okay, if you contribute so-and-so and makes it in, I will pay you X amount for how it's used. And again, you never want things to be muddied. Well, Skyrim is on every platform now, right? I did like the Amazon Alexis version of it. Maybe we should buy that, and I'll make that a Patreon goal.